Righto. Drug use in Australia and Victoria is going up again. We're seeing meth use climbing, cocaine use rising, and overdose deaths are at 10-year highs. But here's what no one's really saying. This isn't just a drug problem. It's a disconnection problem. Because while we're seeing record levels of drug use, we're also seeing record levels of people feeling alone, lost, and disconnected. And I reckon that's where the actual problem is. Right, so there was a report that came out recently that looked at some more recent statistics that have been collected around illicit drug use in Australia. So at the moment, drug use consumption jumped 21% in the last year alone. What that includes is about 26.8 tonnes of cocaine, meth, heroin, and MDMA being used in a single year. Not only is that a ridiculous amount of drugs, but it's also estimated to be a $14.3 billion industry. In Victoria specifically, drug use is up around 6% overall, cocaine is up about 12%, and meth is up about 11%. And here's the one thing that should stop you in your tracks, right? 584 people died from overdoses in Victoria in one single year. To put that in perspective, that's roughly one person every 15 hours. Now, most people hear that and go, we need to crack down harder on drugs. We need more treatment. And yeah, sure, those things matter. But we've been doing this stuff for years. So let's ask a better question. Why are more people using drugs in the first place? Because numbers like this don't just happen randomly. They point to something a heaps deeper. I reckon it's because disconnection is rising too. We are living in the most connected time in history. But people feel so lonely and so isolated and just really out of place. And you can see that in the data. Young adults are the highest users of drugs. People aged 20 to 29 have the highest rates of drug-related hospitalisations. Around 1 in 6 stimulant users report a non-fatal overdose each year. That's not just drug use gone too far. That's a sign of distress. It's disconnection from people, right? We've got more ways to communicate than ever, but less real connection. And I think going back to, 2019? I think COVID was a real catalyst for the beginning of what we're seeing now. You can be surrounded by people, but still feel absolutely alone. I think also the disconnection finds its way into the purpose that people have in their life. A lot of people don't feel like they're building toward anything, right? They feel like they've got no meaning, no direction, just battling it out to get through the week. And when that's your reality, man, you start looking for something to escape to. That's not rocket science. We're constantly distracted. There is zero stillness anymore, no space to actually process anything. So instead of dealing with things, we numb them. Or we use drugs to help us do the expected things that we have to do. We used to have really tight communities, like even growing up, whether it was, for me, it was church or the footy club or, we used to have these things. But now, right, people move around more, they trust less, they know fewer people around them. So that sense of belonging and connecting to something greater than yourself is really disappearing. So this is the part that really worries me. We have so many signs of people, particularly young people, calling out in distress, right? They want help. They don't know that's what they want, but they're making noise. And that noise comes in the sound of many things, right? It can be violence. It can be gangs. It can be hooning. It can be high risk taking behavior, and it can be drugs and alcohol. Right? It's dopamine seeking. We are surrounded by stuff at the moment that hijacks our dopamine regulation system. All right, dopamine is responsible for so many things in your brain, right? From feelings of pleasure and happiness to focus and motivation and concentration. Social media hijacks that system, right? And it does so by creating rewards, right? Your brain was initially set up to, as a reward system, to reward you for doing things that kept you alive. So that's things such as eating, drinking, and having sex. Right? They're the main ones because it's those three things that we as a human race need ultimately to survive. Right? So what would happen is you'd do those things and then your body would reward you with dopamine. So you'd feel good. So you'd want to do it again. And it's that same system that gets hijacked by negative things as well. That's why social media is short, sharp, and sweet, right? We're seeing a huge rise in shorts as opposed to long-term videos on YouTube, right? Because people's attention span is getting less and their need for instant gratification is getting higher. Right? And drugs hit that same system. Right? So what happens is when you see someone or you hear of someone in like full-blown addiction, it's because their primal system for keeping them alive has been absolutely taken over by an external drug. I don't know if you've ever heard, someone who's really addicted to drugs go, I need it to survive. It's not a choice. I need it. That can very well be how they feel because it's that same system designed to keep you alive that is driving and fueling and feeding that drug use. So what starts as an escape from reality or a desire to feel something good, and don't get me wrong, I'll talk about this another day, but drugs make you feel good. Otherwise, no one would take them to begin with. So we need to keep that in mind. But then it becomes this hijack of core fundamental human systems being taken over by external drugs. And different drugs will do it at different rates. So in this context, I think drug use and a rise in drug use shouldn't really come as a surprise. I think it actually makes a lot of sense. If you're isolated, if you're stressed, if you are feeling absolutely directionless, and something comes along and gives you a feeling of relief, of confidence, a way to escape, of course you're going to take it. Right? That is not stupidity. That's just human behavior. Right? Often, drug use can provide the easiest way to escape from a reality that you're not happy with, that you're not satisfied in, that you're not feeling fulfilled with. And in human nature, I think we are very often wired to take the road of least resistance. And in this instance, the road of least resistance is drugs. Now layer all of this on top of the fact that the drugs themselves are changing. They're stronger and more potent, they're more available, and they're more cut or mixed with other things. Australia is now one of the highest consumers of meth in the world. And in many cases, people don't even know what they're taking. That's how you end up with more overdoses, more accidental deaths, more people dying alone. Because what they once knew they were taking is no longer that thing anymore. So here's what doesn't get enough attention. Most overdoses don't happen at parties. They almost always happen alone, at home, and behind closed doors. Man, that tells you everything you need to know. This isn't just about drugs. It's about people with no one around them when things go wrong. I'm not just going to sit here and say, connection fixes everything. But it's a bloody good start. And if we don't start actually addressing disconnection, we will keep chasing symptoms. More treatment, more crisis response, more deaths. And there's some amazing work that happens in this space. I've seen it, I've been a part of it. But it's clearly not the ultimate way to fix it. It's clearly not overall making things better. Because we're not dealing with the root issue, which happens long before a person takes drugs or starts using drugs frequently. It happens at the point where they're disconnected. Disconnected from themselves, disconnected from others. So yeah, drug use in Victoria is getting worse. And you'll see that headline a lot. I saw the other night on Channel 7, I think it was, a story on Nangs and how Nangs are ruining the lives of young people. Sure, but that's not the real story. Behind the headline here is the fact that we're becoming more disconnected from each other, from purpose, and from ourselves. And until we start actually doing something about that, we're going to keep asking these wrong questions. Why do people use drugs? Why won't they stop? Why is this getting worse? We've got to start actually dealing with the problem. Until we start connecting more with each other, this problem's just going to keep getting worse.